Welcome to our first ever CCM on the Couch. It's a new podcast that we're launching. We're going to have members of the CCM community, faculty, staff, friends, and we're just going to yuck it up. We're just going to talk about things relevant and interesting to our guests every week. And to kick us off is CCM's songwriting vocal faculty member, Knoester. Thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we got the peanut gallery over here too. Congratulations on your recent nuptials. Very recent as of this recording.
Yes.
Everything looked amazing. How did it feel?
Thank you. Feels good.
Yeah?
Yes. I feel like an adult now.
Feel like an adult now. Well, that's something I continuously try to work on. So a little bit about Kia. Kia, originally from the Netherlands, but has been here for a long time. Got her master's from Cal State LA in 2020 in commercial music. Since then, and even prior to then, she's been developing her own artist career. She's been writing songs for soundtracks for movies on Netflix and Hulu. She's been winning a bunch of international songwriting competitions, and she's been doing the thing, as the millennials say. So maybe, Kia, take us back to kind of coming up in the Netherlands and maybe what the scene is like over there, what is sort of music training like back home.
Yeah, well, I did a bunch of different music schools before I did my master's degree. So I started off a performing arts school when I was 17, but I feel like when I was 17, I wasn't very sure in life what to do, and if that was going to be it, I felt like I needed to explore other things. So I got accepted for piano, even though I did audition for voice. And then I added some sound design to it, and then after a year I got bored, so I quit completely. And then I did nursing, I did surgical assistants, like a bunch of random stuff. And it still wasn't fully it. So a couple years later, I was like, you know what, I'm going to do what I feel like my heart desires and what I feel like I'm comfortable in doing. And because I did grow up, playing instruments and laying a foundation in music. So I went back to the performing arts school and I finished it, and I did get accepted for voice this time. And then after that, I started a band, performed around a lot, and me and the bassist at the time, we were like, you know what, let's just try an audition for this conservatory. It was a jazz and pop, it's called Artes Conservatory. And we're like, if we get accepted, that would be the time to fully take this seriously. We were in our beginning, early 20s, mid 20s, and we both got accepted. So we went in into the the Bachelor of Music, Jazz and Pop, and in terms of like musical education, after all the schools that I've seen, and especially now when I look back on it, I felt like that was definitely the school that I learned the most. They were very heavy on music theory in the first 2 years. After the first 2 years, they give you the freedom to develop yourself as an artist and as a singer or a musician, and they introduce you to a bunch of people because they have like an artist in residence every year. And so I felt like that really laid my foundation as a musician and as a singer-songwriter. And then when I got to my last year, a lot of people do like an Erasmus exchange, which is within Europe. They do like some sort of internship with another school or like a exchange program. And I initially didn't want to do that, but then my teacher at the time, she was like, well, you're in your 20s. After this, you're not gonna do that anymore. So you have the opportunity now, think about it another time. And so I did, and I decided, you know what, if I really want to go to a place, I have to go to the place that I've always wanted to be at, where music is basically the mecca and it's the biggest scene. So I did everything in my power to do an exchange in LA. So in 2017, I was here for about 6 months, and I came back and graduated back in the Netherlands. And then I was like, no, I gotta go back. Because I really liked it. I did an exchange for songwriting here, and my main instrument was voice, vocal performance back in the Netherlands. So I wrote a lot of songs here, and I was like, this just means a lot. Like environment, being in a city where people are so passionate and dedicated and driven, and I felt like that aligned so much with what I feel like is inside of me, and so I applied for a bunch of scholarships and foundations, and I got all the money together, and I did my master's degree here.
And that was in 2020. Of course, we all know what transpired in 2020.
Yeah.
Obviously, whenever we complete our studies, we're all gung-ho about the next thing and you know, getting started in the industry. And of course, everything shuts down, you know, right when you get your piece of paper. Of course, that obviously must be mentally challenging, but how did you, let's say, make it work for yourself? You know, obviously, you know, being somebody from outside the U.S., you know, for those who don't know, you know, typically you're eligible to apply for a temporary work authorization, which you did when we brought you on. You were sort of in the middle of that program, but obviously, you know, you are also aspiring to creative ends. So how did you sort of navigate an industry, frankly, in crisis at the time? There were no live shows, so you couldn't really do that. So what did you end up doing to sort of advance your career during a time where, you know, pretty much nothing was happening?
Yeah, I mean, this was, I think for everyone, that was just a very difficult time when you look back on it. It's, when you're in it, I feel like you're just going with it and you just see what happens. You know, I graduated like the last couple months of my master's degree had already happened. So we tried to switch to online classes, but nobody was used to it. So it was a very strange way of graduating. And also I had this super American graduation with the caps and stuff in my head, because that's not something that's very common in the Netherlands. So I was looking forward to that, and then none of that happened. So it was a bit of a disappointment. Also because I really prepped my final recital performance, and that was my, you know, my master's degree final performance, and it just didn't happen anymore. And I already had all the props for the decor, and I had all the songs ready. You know, we did rehearsals with the band and stuff, and so I decided to safely, partner up with a studio, and we recorded all the songs that I was going to play live as a live version. So we would run the song, you know, we would play it 3 times, and we would pick one take, and that take goes on the album. So I released a live album during the pandemic. So that's one thing I did. On the other side, I feel like, you know, a lot of people, they dove more into their own home studios. They built out their home studios more. They started being more creative, and I definitely, tried to loop into that and get my producer chops up and recording chops and try to release more stuff, more video content at the time.
I want to get to that also, the needs of the modern industry, where there's sort of 2 schools of thought in my mind, at least in my experience. One, being at the top of the call sheet in some area. You know, are you the go-to bass player in town? You know, are you the number 1 string arranger in town? But then there's also the idea that you are a business. You know, you kind of have to do a lot of different things yourself.
Right.
And especially because if you don't have, let's say, label backing yet or something like this, you're going to have to either come out of pocket to get all these people to help you out and fill in all the gaps, or you're going to have to give them a cut of your future earnings through either points on publishing or whatever.
Right.
So maybe talk about, you know, getting to a place where you have a certain well-rounded skill set. You know, is that still something in your experience that you found to be important, you know, to have some production chops, to have business savvy, to, you know, but also to be a sort of top of the call sheet singer-songwriter? Maybe talk a little bit about, you know, developing skills, you know, and, some advice for the folks at home about, you know, what they need to bone up on in order to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, I think both sides are still very relevant. I think it's not either or. Like I think it's important to have your main focus, your main thing. Like I said, if it's a string arranger or if you're a songwriter, or like, I think it's really important that you have one thing that you're really, really good at that distinguish you from other people. On the other side, though, you absolutely need to be able to do everything else as well, because, like you said, if there's no if there's no budget that you have for like marketing or for even like studio time, you still record in the studios or mixing and mastering, like you still need money for that. So how are you going to get that? Or you need to have people that you can work off favors with. So networking, I would say that is your first priority, networking. But aside from that, you need to be passionate about what you do. You need to be very driven and resilient. If you have one thing that sets you apart, authenticity. I think that comes with it as well, especially if you are like a singer-songwriter, that you have a certain sound or a certain style or voice that just sets you apart from somebody else, that would make it interesting to work with or to make people enthusiastic about it. But network then comes really into place, because if you don't have a network where you can build a team around you that works with you, or finding education where you can develop your own skill set to do certain things, and that's not just being good at musical theory. That's, for example, also video editing, social media, how does it work to post and when to post, writing press releases to blogs. Like, there's a business side to it, because being a musician also means that you're running a business.
Talk about, you mentioned your network and things like this, and you also mentioned about traditional education and stuff, and how that can only get you so far. Mm-hmm. Obviously, as somebody who works in popular music, you have to collaborate a lot. Whether you as an artist are working with producers, or you as a songwriter for film are working with composers and things like this. How do you learn to do that? Is that something that was thrust upon you in your studies, like in your master's or something? Is this something you learned by rote? What are some things maybe you've discovered about collaboration, or learned about how, what you bring to the table, mm-hmm. That you can impart to everybody?
I think it's not necessarily something that a school will teach you in a way, or could even teach you in a way, because I think if you are going through a process of, the learning curve and everything, for me, I just said yes to everything. Even if I was not sure if I would be able to do it, I just said yes. Like, hey, can you come into a sound check and perform with us? Not having a clue what to do, I said yes, let's do it. 5 minutes before the showtime, hey, could you write a quick poem so we have an intro for a song? Yes, I could do it. And trust me, it's very stressful at the time, but that absolutely shaped everything I can do right now. So I now know enough that I can trust myself to work on a very high pressure, which allows me to work with composers or, music for media and stuff, because those kind of briefs, they move very fast. It's like, next day you need to have a song fully produced, fully mixed, mastered, finished, done.
Yep.
If you don't have anything in your library, you have to pull an all-nighter to get it done.
Oh yeah, I've been there. I mean, I did that for about a year and a half at a little upstart label, and it was very fast paced, very intense, stressful, and you might not even get the gig at the end of the day, right? You might not even win the brief. Most times you don't, because you got a lot of people competing. So that's a very different side of the industry, obviously, right? You have your own artist career, mm-hmm. With songs that you write, that that you produce and things like this. But you also work, in media music, for movies, and things like this. Mm-hmm. How did you break into the media side of the industry? There are a lot of gatekeepers. There's lots of people, who kind of have their networks in place and things like this. So how did you personally sort of get your feet wet in that side of the industry?
I'm pretty organic, and this is also why I have to give credit to my undergrads where I went to, because They have, aside from the jazz and pop department, they have musical theater and they have a film scoring department. And even though it feels a bit separate from each other, at least I still went out my way and talked to people. And I got in contact with, who now became a very good friend of mine, Lars Hempel, who was at the time an additional composer of Anne Dern. And Anne Dern also went to Artes. They're both German. She went to the same school, moved out to LA years ago, like way before I did. And so I started writing with him a lot. He wanted to do more music production as well. So it was kind of like, hey, like we could make a song for this. I'm working on this project right now, and then we'll pitch it out. And that's kind of how it worked. And then as soon as I moved out here, obviously I got to meet her and we did a couple of projects together. And so from that, it kind of, this kind of like a snowball effect. It started rolling a bit because then other composers that either follow, because she has a big media presence, and then there's a lot of cool tips and tricks for film scoring on YouTube, and so a lot of other composers started reaching out to me and were like, hey, we saw that you did this song on this movie with her, and like we'd love to work with you. Like, so I've been very fortunate to work directly with composers, so kind of cut the middleman in there.
Yeah.
Now I'm at a point though where I am looking for maybe like a publishing deal or more like a licensing deal. So mainly to keep the ball going further, and I guess my network being more broad.
Yeah, get them IMDb credits up.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. And then on the artist side of the equation, obviously for a lot of people that's the dream. A lot of people watching, especially. To sort of be the face of your own franchise. And that's a very different path. It's not a immediately financially rewarding grind, as maybe taking a gig for, a production might be. So 2 questions. One, what is the LA scene like for up and coming artists? Are there sort of rites of passage that you have to go through as an LA singer-songwriter that everybody should know and should do? That's kind of part 1 of the question, and part 2 is how do you, let's say, overcome some of the long game stress of knowing that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and keeping yourself motivated and keeping yourself going as you're building your fan base, as you're getting further and further into the scene, as you're getting better and better time slots on shows and things like this. So maybe speak a little bit about to that.
I think for both questions, I think it's very important to stay true to yourself and to keep going and not lose what you came here to do. If you're from outside, but even if you're from out of state, or even if you're from here, I feel like in general you have to believe in what you do, or else nobody else will believe in you. That's something I've been told very early on, and then I think there's a lot of truth in that. Steps in terms of like coming here as an LA or being an up and coming artist or emerging artist, it's tough. It's not easy. I don't think it's easy anywhere, but specifically LA, because it's so big and there's a lot of competition. Like everybody wants to be somebody here, you know what I mean? And you can either like follow the masses and lose yourself along the way, or you can just be very stubborn and stick to who you are. And I think that's finding that balance is hard because there's so many people that will try to, like if you're too timid, they'll walk all over you. If you're too confident, you'll be seen as an arrogant bee. You know what I mean? So it's finding that right balance of be like, I am this person and this is what I do, this is what I stand for, this is what I sound like. You either like it or you don't. And then soon enough you'll find and weed out the people that actually are cool with that, or they believe in you, or they side with you, or they feel like, hey, I want to be a part of that, I want to be a part of your journey. And you get new doors that are being opened and new possibilities, new opportunities. I think the only good thing, or really good thing to me about LA, is that there are so many opportunities and possibilities. Now, if you talk about performing, for example, to me, that was something to get used to, because the concept here that goes around a lot is the pay to play concept for up and coming artists. And in some ways, like, I understand it. In other ways, I feel like it's the artist being exploited. The whole purpose of a performance being a service is completely out of the window. So to me, you also see that the quality then goes down because the middleman wants to make money. So they'll just book a bunch of people. In reality, their job is to promote your stuff, but in reality, you are promoting your own stuff because the middleman is not doing anything. So you feel like you're being exploited. And that was a hard concept for me to deal with when I got here. So I knew right off the bat, like, my own artist project, and I know for everybody that is watching this, like you're not going to make bank on that the first couple years at all. Like, you have to see this as your business card. So when somebody asks you what do you do, or what do you sound like, you can say like, this is what I do, and you'll gain more confidence in that. But I mean, there's only a small percentage that gets picked out, and that's another factor of being, an artist, is that you need to have some luck on your side and finding the right people at the right time. You don't always have the power over that. You can steer it in a direction by networking, etc., but you don't always have the power.
Talk about, you mentioned live performance, right? Specifically the pay-to-play model, everything from so-far sound and things like this, and these entities that basically set up opportunities. Are there other ways to present your music to live audiences that you've tried or you've seen your peers try that have shown promise?
I mean, not all LA is pay to play, obviously. Right. So I think your first step is to maybe try a couple just to see and experience what it is like, if you can actually get something out of that. I think there are some organizations here that do have a pay to play concept or similar to pay to play that you would still get something out of it in terms of new fan base, meeting other people that are on the bill that are actually cool bands and stuff. But there are also organizations and entities that, don't do that. Obviously, you can also just reach out yourself and set something up yourself. Like, if there is a cool, art gallery, make a call, try to set something up. Like, there's ways to work with it. But you have to be businessy about it.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of businessy about it, this might not sound like business on its face, but the business of social media and how vital it is to the success of the modern musician, whether you're, an absolute guitar shredder or, I recently, one bass player that I watch a lot on Instagram, now is Corey Wong's touring bass player, right? And he's a Brazilian guy, actually. And he's quite good. And I've always been impressed with him, and it makes sense, right? Maybe how does social media fit into the sort of strategy for an independent artist? Is it something that you should be investing the vast majority of your time doing? How does that square with live shows? Is it a chicken and egg thing where you want people to come to your shows because you have followers and you'll get better slots, or do you get followers because you pay shows? Maybe talk about how social media fits into the game plan for an indie artist.
I mean, obviously this concept of social media has changed so much in the past years. If you're talking about 40, 50 years ago, that was not a thing.
Of course, yeah.
People didn't have to deal with it.
What was the guy's name? Scott from MySpace? What was his name?
Oh, yeah, wait.
the guy that every MySpace user is Tom. Yes, Tom from MySpace, right.
But it, there's no way around it that it could absolutely be the tool to amplify your music and your career and the attention to people to a mass audience or to a wider audience that goes beyond your friend circle. And it creates opportunities. So I would not sleep on it today at all. I would, and and I say this because I have a love and hate relationship with social media myself.
As do we all.
Yeah, I think a lot of, especially millennials, I'd say, and up, we have a harder time with it.
We're done. Yeah.
But I mean, I see it around me, and I see it with friends of mine and artists, and even like, my manager friends back in the Netherlands who have artists, and their social media is doing great, and they get a lot of attention from it. When it comes down to like having fans and playing shows, here's the tricky part, but I feel this is with a lot of aspects in being a musician and artist and songwriter. It's like a venue will book you if you have a certain amount of streams or numbers. To create those numbers, you need to have fans. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you're right, like chicken or egg, what comes first? And this is something that I think you only find out by doing. And it's with trial and error, honestly.
Are there other places on the internet or otherwise, that you can build community? Like, obviously, there are platforms like Reddit, Discord, places like this, where people talk about anything, really. Have you found any other sort of spaces where you can share or, foster relationships that can improve your standing in the industry?
I mean, Facebook groups still have a couple of really good ones, and they also, they have some pages where they actually post paid gigs. So, or groups where you can communicate with producers and set up some collaborations. I've gotten some from there. Discord, another one, like some really cool artists and producers, they have their own Discord, and they love to like link up with people and collaborate, and it creates this whole community instantly where you're able to talk with people around the world. But I mean, I think for me, Instagram is still the spot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's obviously even like outside of social media, there are organizations that, like, I think the biggest thing, the one I can think of right now is like the NAMM. It's like a showcase event where a lot of, pro audio companies show their new products, but in reality, it's a hub for all these creative people that come together, and they have seminars and masterclasses and workshops, and that's the way to go.
Yeah, you've performed at the NAMM show before, right? What was that experience like?
Oh, that was fun. That's been like a dream of mine from back in the Netherlands, because, when I started rolling into music, it was either Music Messe in Germany or it was the NAMM in LA. Yep. And I was like, one day I'll perform there. And then it happened 2 years ago, and that was like, wow.
That was with the full band too, right?
Yeah.
You brought the horns out and everything. I want to go back to something you said earlier when you were talking about staying true to yourself and, embracing your personality. Mm-hmm. You had talked about this tightrope that you have to walk of being too, meek, where you get taken advantage of, or too assertive, where, to use your censored words, you could be viewed as an arrogant bee.
Yeah.
The invoking the B word here obviously has some gendered coding here. Yeah. And traditionally, things like music production have been a very male-dominated scene. In your experience, have you, this is probably a softball question, have you experienced any sort of adversity or, maybe lack of respect or something like this because you are a woman in the scene, or even because, let's say, you're not originally from the U.S., and how have you persevered through that?
Well, I think what really helped me out is that I practiced real hard on my American accent so that people would not know off the bat that I'm from a different country. I think that really helped me. In terms of being a woman, I've definitely had my fair share. Not just here, also back in the Netherlands. not being taken seriously, people stealing your credits, being sexualized when they're supposed to be a manager. Like, it's just sad that happens. Especially, like, I started rolling more into music production, and I've definitely realized that, like, nowadays, and I'm talking about this past year, that people, when you say, like, oh, like, yeah, I produce music, they're like, oh, wow, oh, that's awesome. As opposed of, like, a couple years ago, oh, okay, cool.
Right.
Well,
they don't necessarily expect you to
be
like,
good.
have the competency.
Yeah.
Which I find fascinating, because you're not the first person to say this, obviously. I was listening to an interview on NPR with Toki Monster, and she was saying how basically the same thing, where people just don't expect a woman to have this for some reason. I don't know why. I think Bjork also has said similar things, where people just don't expect women to have the same technical skill set.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's part of, that probably starts at a young age, where, when we give toys with kids to play with or whatever, traditionally the boys get the trucks and the building things, and
we get the Barbie.
Right, you know what I mean? And like, of course, there's a lot of baggage there to unpack, but I find it, disheartening to hear that even this year people are still not expecting people to, women or, other, disadvantaged or minority groups and things like this that have skills, so how is it just you got to prove it to people, or like you just let it roll off you? Like how do you handle those sorts of assumptions or assertions?
Well, I feel like for me, as with my personality, I feel like when somebody tells me, like, you're not good enough, or you can't do this or you can't do that, for me that's only fuel. And I'm so stubborn in that I will go so far to show you that you're wrong. I don't know if that's a good trait or a bad trait. But yeah, that's why I think, you just need to have a very strong backbone in this industry, and especially as a woman in this industry. There's no way around it that you're still going to have to prove yourself. And that's not just for women. That's also for men in certain ways. It's just, there's now a light on this concept. So I'd say prove them wrong. Be as good as you can be. There's no difference to me. And I hope that others see this the same way, that men and women in this are equal. Music is not for one or the other. It's for everyone. And we, just like you and I speak words to each other, that's a language too. So there's not that one's better than the other.
Right. If you had to tell an aspiring artist to work on 3 things, what would they be?
First one would be to be really good at something, and try everything in your power to do that, whether it's going to a music education, music school, whether it's, doing it through experience, working with people, just be really good at something. Because you can be good at okay and good at a lot of things, but then you're not going anywhere, you know what I mean? So you have to focus on one specific thing that you either want to do or you want to be good at. Second one is to be open and communicative, because you're gonna need your network. That's just a fact. That's so part of this industry and this business model. And then the last one,
Music theory.
I'd say be confident and believe in yourself, because as soon as you lose that passion, and I've been there, and I think a lot of us feel this way still, it's like a cycle, right? It's like you're doing really well, and then it's kind of quiet at the moment, and then you're like, oh wait, what am I doing? Wait, am I making right choice? Am I a musician? Like, what am I doing? All the insecurities will come up.
I ask myself that every day.
I mean, yes, and me too, and I feel like a lot of my friends and inner circle, we all experience this. So it's like you have to believe in what you're doing, and with that, you will find people around you that will remind you as well.
So what are you doing? What are you working on right now? What's some upcoming projects that you have in the pipeline?
I am finishing up an R&B EP, close to done. Hopefully, beginning of next year will be the release. I released one of the songs last month. I started working with this studio called Sunset Sound. I don't know if you heard of it. They're actually doing a really cool Women of Sunset idea as well, which I also performed at. But yeah, I mean, I am writing as much as I can. I wanted to build up my library and catalog, and I'm shopping around for some publishing deals, and you know, I mean, you can find me in the studio.
In the studio.
Next year will be more performance.
For the folks at home, what is a publishing deal, and why is it advantageous for someone like you?
I mean, publishing deal comes in different forms. The forms that I'm mainly looking at right now is where you receive an advance amount that needs to be recouped, obviously. And then you have to create a certain amount of songs that will then be pitched out for synchronization, and the company, the publishing company, they will own a certain percentage of your publishing side, where they will in return pitch it out for you and you know, do your administration of the percentages, et cetera, et cetera. So,
which everybody loves doing.
Yeah. So, you know, if they work hard, you work hard. If you work hard, they work hard.
Right.
Kind of that.
What is the timeline for a deal like this? How long are you typically locked into something like that?
3 years max, and then they'll review it. Yeah. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, right now I feel like I'm open to a lot of things. I just want to write, and whether that's for the sing side or from my artist side, I feel like they will always go hand in hand for me. Yeah.
So let's talk about that briefly. Okay. I'm getting signals from production. I'm trying to air traffic control. Gotcha.
Yeah,
so talk about, you know, as a writer, obviously you're writing album music, you know, in this case an EP, but you're also writing for someone else when you're making something for media or like a Netflix show or something like this.
Right.
How does the process change for you when you have only yourself to answer to versus people who don't know anything about music the way you do, and you know, you have to decipher all these, you know, kind of cryptic pieces of feedback like I want it fast but slow.
Yeah.
I've gotten before. I like that, but you know, more, you know, and you have to kind of work with that. So how does your creative process change in those two environments?
In terms of speed, it gets very interesting because when I write for myself, it takes me forever and ever and ever. I'm such a critic and such an over-perfectionist when it comes to my own material. And I actually need to start stepping into my sync writer for a minute so I can detach from it and make faster decisions, because on the sync side, you have to be fast. So you just have to trust your musicality enough to be able to get done what's asked. And for me, that works really well. I can work very fast in that. When it comes to my own stuff, it just takes longer. But in terms of writing process, it's also different because obviously when you're writing for sync, there's already either like a premises or a story that you can go off of, or already want specific sounds in it that already directs it in a certain way. When you're writing for yourself, you have to set those parameters yourself. And that's what I always do. So I always start out with one little nugget that I then turn into a world, and that then I have to organize it. So I always see songs as puzzles. Like the pieces are already there, you just have to find the ones that fit and fit well in order to create the best picture or the best song. So I feel like those are the two differences for me.
So in terms of speeding up your process for your own stuff, are you, let's say, calendaring deadlines and things like this for yourself? Like lyrics got to be done by X date? Is it like that micromanagerial, or are you just kind of channeling those forces?
Okay, this is a very bad habit, so if everybody watches this, don't do this at home. I know for myself that I work best when the pressure is the highest. So I will on purpose wait until the very last minute, because then there's no way around it.
It's like looking in the mirror is crazy. But also getting back to what you were saying about building the world, do you have specific, processes that you use? Like, do you playlist, things, for example, to get references in your ear? Like, how are you world building?
Sometimes. I mean, this is all very different and very diverse. Like, references, I love to work off of references in terms of soundscaping or production or even structure sometimes, just to get, like, ideas and fuel for it. Sometimes, like, the other day, I wrote a song with Sunset Sound, and it was based off of 4 chords and a title. And I wrote a whole song out of it. So this just differs. There's not one way or the other, and I feel like you shouldn't always stick to one way either. You should try to, reinvent yourself in certain ways, and maybe start with a melody, humming a melody, and then build it on the piano chords underneath, and then add lyrics. Like there's not one formula of this is how you write a song. So I say just try out everything.
Which is funny because I get asked a lot, lyrics or melody first, and the answer is both and, right?
Yeah.
Just do everything and, constantly shake up the process,
Right.
to sort of get yourself out of some habits and things that you have. If you're used to writing on the guitar, just put the guitar down.
Right.
If you are used to, programming drums in the DAW, like pick up a guitar, or just write in a notebook some words and see what happens. Definitely.
Yeah, or record some instruments, like record percussion. Like,
sure.
There's so many different fun ways to.
Or some instrument you've never touched before,
Right.
and just see what kind of noise can I make, and maybe you get something really interesting.
Yeah.
Any sort of final thoughts about maybe the state of music right now? What the scene is like? Are we bullish on pop music? Are we bearish on pop music? Kind of like how do you view sort of the landscape right now?
I think we're in an interesting time where I'm not sure if this is a good or a bad thing. I think the industry is a bit broken. I think labels and independent artists, companies, we're all trying to figure out how to fit in and what model works, because I feel like there's not really a model right now, which makes it hard. What was the other part of the question?
Just, do you think pop music is in a sort of high point? Is it a golden era of pop music? Is it a down era of pop music? Where, in your opinion, of course, no right answer here.
Well, I think it gets, I think everything is blurred, if that makes sense. Like, we're at a point in time where I think a lot of people feel like everything has already been done. There's so many sub-genres, everything kind of crosses over, and then gets a new name attached to it, where it's like what is still happening? So I feel like, as in every era, some part of history in terms of music and genre comes back that has like a leading tone to it. I'm curious.
Music theory reference.
I'm curious to see what will happen in the upcoming time. I've been hearing some folk-inspired stuff coming back. I think the 80s definitely with Dua Lipa and her album in terms of pop music, and World Star is becoming back. Jazz music, thank God, has been coming back around. So it's like
you got like Lefe making bossa nova stuff, basically, right?
Yeah.
You got some interesting things happening.
And it's I think it's always interesting to see what those genres, how they evolve in a modern jacket. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say we're at the golden era right now, but we're not at a bad era either.
Well, hopefully you will be a force to be reckoned with in this upcoming era of pop music. Kia Knoester, songwriting and vocal faculty here at CCM. And, there's applause too. Amazing. Wow, the production value of this first ever podcast is through the roof. Kia, thanks so much for joining me for our talk today. And best of luck with everything coming up.
Thanks, Chris.
Wrap.